So here we go. Okay, perfect. So these are the core objectives for today's goal setting PowerPoint. So overall, you want to think of it as it's not motivation you lack, it's structure. So in the past, I don't know what your 2025 year looked like. You may have had some goals that you wanted to reach and it was hard, and you didn't get to them, or there were some obstacles that came in. But I want you to think of it as it's not motivation that you lack, it's may have been just the structure. You didn't plan accordingly. But by the end of this PowerPoint, I hope that you get the skills and the education to do that this year. So we're going to talk about why do we fail at meeting our goals? And the biggest thing would be lack of clarity. You may be overly ambitious. There's no tracking or accountability happening, and maybe emotional barriers. So, essentially, the biggest thing with this is clarifying your priorities and your values. So these are just some things that we may have goals for the year, whether it's health goals, career goals, finances. You want to add more fun into your routine. You want to focus on your mental health, maybe personal growth. The problem with that is that a lot of people kind of try to put a bunch of goals into their mind where they want to maybe do like 5 or 6. Please rank the top 3 today. And then when you're clarifying your value, that's really deciding and determining your why. Let's say you have a goal for your health. Write it down and think why that's important to you. Next, your finances or relationships, wherever it may be. You want to rank them from 1 to 5, maybe 1 to 10. How important it is to you and why. Next, you want to set achievable goals and that feel aligned for you. As I mentioned before, the important thing here is to limit your goals to 1 to 3 max for this year. You may also want to think about them as like a quarterly thing. Of course, we have 12 months of the year. So maybe you want to space it out to where maybe for this winter or springtime, you want to do one goal. Then summer to fall, you'll do another. So that's a good way to do it. You also want to focus on progress over perfection. One of the biggest frameworks a lot of people use, I'm sure you've heard of it before, is the SMART analogy, the SMART framework. So you want it to be specific. You want it to be measurable, like set a timeline. You want it to feel achievable. Don't be over ambitious. You want it to be achievable. You want it to be relevant, and that's where the why comes in. Don't come up with a goal that really is not important to you. A lot of times we think about goals in our life and we have other people in mind. And that's where we fail. You want this goal to be relevant to you for it to actually come to pass. And then also time bound. Again, have a timeline for it and make sure that timeline is also achievable. So this is like a quick breakdown of what I meant before with SMART goals. So you want to build an action plan. What is the big picture? Then once you get your big picture, you have a quarterly target. What are you going to achieve on a quarterly basis? Then what do you want to achieve on a monthly basis? Then you can go down into a weekly basis. And then think about what are the daily habits or weekly habits you have to add to your life to achieve this big picture. So there's an example here. The goal is to save that $5,000 in 2026. So quarterly, you want to think about saving $1,250. What does that look like on a monthly basis? $417 in savings. What does that look like on a weekly basis? That's $96. And then a daily habit you can do, or a overall habit, will be to automate your transfers into your savings every payday. So when you do it like this in a breakdown, it feels more doable. If you have a goal where it's like, okay, I just want to save 5,000 for the year, it feels out of reach. But when you think about it as is $96 a week, that seems more doable. It falls in line with the SMART framework that I talked about. Now, I want you to think about, I know I mentioned before, motivation is not that you lack motivation, is that you lack structure. And in this sense, you also have to be disciplined. So there are a lot of things to do that. Overall, you want to look at, um, depending on what your goal is, does time blocking align with that? So, what time blocking would mean is to schedule a certain time into your day where you focus on this specific goal. And you want to stick to that goal, stick to that timeline. Um, then, reducing friction. What that means is try to avoid any distractions during that time or anything that may stop you from doing that specific goal. For example, if your goal is to make it to the gym after work, make sure you're reducing friction, reducing any roadblocks by bringing your clothes with you to work, keeping it in your car. Maybe, again, as I mentioned, maybe automate your bills. Maybe you want to try to start meal prepping so that you are not, coming into your lunchtime and you're not sure what to eat and now you're going out to eat or something. So, depending on what your goal is, you want to reduce friction, and that's a great tip for you. The next one will be environment shaping. Again, this also has to do with removing distractions. However, this is more so environmental distractions. So create certain cues. And this kind of aligns with habit stacking in a sense where you're telling yourself, if I do one behavior, then I will do the next behavior. In this sense, if someone says, after I eat my breakfast, I will make sure to stretch for 10 minutes. And that's where the discipline comes in as well. So you want to make sure every morning that as soon as you're done with your breakfast, the next step after that would be you're stretching for 10 minutes. And you want to stick to that. So eventually, motivation will fade. There will be times where you don't want to stick to this goal. You kind of feel unmotivated, but you want to reframe your mindset into thinking this is about being disciplined. And there are systems to help you with that, and I will go into that a little bit later on in the PowerPoint. I'm going to touch on a few obstacles that you may see or feel come up during your time this year, but of course, you can overcome them, and there are ways to do that. So, the common obstacles that we encourage, which are very much a lot of the times internal, is not always environmental, except for like illness or financial stress or life events. But lack of clarity, lack of time, comparison, perfectionism, fear of failure, that's all of things that are internal and that we bring onto ourselves. So it's really important to be mindful when you have to start shifting your mindset. So I have that tip here where you have to have a good enough mindset. Stop trying to be perfect in your goal and think, okay, this is good enough. Like I mentioned before, in the example before with saving money, if you, let's say your weekly goal was to do $96 in savings. Let's say you can only do 50. That is good enough. You don't want to put yourself down because it's not the 96 that you originally planned for. Another goal or another tip would be to make time for rest is really easy to burn yourself out when you have specific goals. If it's a health goal, like working out more, eating better, make time for rest. Make time for the things you love. If you're sticking to a meal plan all week, it's okay to enjoy a dinner that you really love. That may not be the most healthiest, or you want to have some dessert. Enjoy that. It's all in moderation. The other tip would be re-entry plan for after setbacks. So all of these obstacles are inevitable. It's going to happen in these times of the year, especially like illness or financial stress or life events. But really sit down and think about a plan you can put forth on how to get yourself back on track. And that goes along with reframing your failure as data. What this means is that when you do fail or you feel like you are falling back or you have a setback, you're not going to dwell on that feeling of failure. You're going to sit down and understand the root of it. You'll take it as data, not internalize it, but take it as data and put together a plan to move forward. So, accountability systems that actually work. So, people don't fail because they lack goals, they fail because they lack accountability. And there are a lot of different ways you can go about this. There are personal systems that you can go through, social systems, and technology systems. So these are just a few that you can take with you today and see what works for you. What may work for me may not work for you. I may really enjoy having calendar reminders, but for you, you may very much just ignore those calendar reminders. So you want to do what works for you. Accountability buddy, those are really successful in the long run, especially if you have a close connection to that accountability buddy. But again, you're going to do what works for you. And this is just and a reminder as well that the employee wellness team does do health coaching for free. So if you need an accountability buddy or a coach, we are here to help you with that. Um, and so that comes into our last activity as we wrap up. I know I went a little fast on there, but for the sake of time, I didn't want to just do this PowerPoint and just for you to move on with the rest of your day and not set forth any actual plans. So if you feel called to do this today, write it down. So based off what I spoke about today, think about your top 3 priorities that I mentioned before. Pick one or two that you really want to focus, one major one. Think about a quarterly target, a weekly action. What is an obstacle that may come up for that? And think about an accountability method. So we'll just take maybe like 5 minutes where you can write it down. And of course, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to help with that. And I'll just go back to our previous slide. These are just some examples of things you may prioritize this year and may be in line with one of your goals. Now I'll go back to our activity. So now that you have 3 of those and you rank them, pick the top one. You can think about a quarterly target, and a weekly action. And if you feel called to share, of course, you can always write it down in the chat. If it's not too personal to you, let us know what your goal is. We can also just help each other. So, as I mentioned before, we are here to help, and these are Jasenia, one of the health coaches, but also Liz and Sarah are here to help you. This is our information. Feel free to email or text us. We'll be happy to help you come up with a better plan for your goals, kickstart on your wellness journey, or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be wellness related. We are happy to be your accountability coach. So I would like to just say thank you, everyone who joined me today. I hope this was helpful for you. If you would like me to send you this PowerPoint, I would be happy to do that. So again, you can, if you want to write in the chat that you would like an email, let me know. This webinar will also be on our YouTube channel that we just launched, everything on our website. Okay, I will do that. Hi, Lisa. Nice to see you here.
Thank
Well, I hope
you.
you guys
This is great.
great. Yeah, I'll send that over to you if you like.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We're almost to the weekend. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.